Oh, those damn Zogon. Those damn Vogons. Hello, everybody. 'Tis I, Michael A. Graham, aka the Multi Voice. I have many voices, but one opinion. And in case you're wondering why I'm wearing a towel on my neck, and of course you saw me reading my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the ultimate book. Believe it or not, folks, I know years ago I did review Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I mean, I talk about the book, I briefly talk about the radio show, I talk about the TV series made back in 1980. Let's say 1981, and of course the movie that it was sort of too quick to make. So the reason why I'm wearing my Doctor Who outfit because it's another science fiction, and sometimes I like to combine Doctor Who with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy because there always been a connection since the late great Douglas Adams, who wrote the book and did the radio play. He wrote 3 episodes of Doctor Who, the Tom Baker version. And the reason why I'm wearing a towel here, well, like they say in the book, in the galaxy there are a lot of aliens who would like to kill you, do you, bump you off. If you want to know where you're safe, you gotta know where your towel is. But one thing I haven't avoiding lately is, of course, the radio series. Turns out that Douglas Adams, he wrote the book, but he also started out as a radio show before he wrote the book. So therefore, I mean, he extended the entire story, and I listened to every single radio show, so therefore I decided to review the radio show instead. So look no fewer than hear me talk about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the radio series. Let's start out, well, of course I cannot pronounce different certain phases, but let's start with the first one, Phase 1, called Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now, the narrator of the book is none other than Peter Jones. He narrates throughout the whole series. And then you have Arthur Dent, voiced by Simon Jones. And of course, his friend, when he told him he was from Guilford, but turns out he's from a small planet somewhere in the vicinity of Betelgeuse, Ford Prefect, voiced by Jeffrey McGivern. And he starts telling him that he's from a small planet somewhere in the vicinity of Betelgeuse in a bar, until Vogon shows up and says that they're there to destroy Earth because they're going to make it into a hyperspace bypass. Hate it when aliens want to destroy a planet just to make it bypass. Ugh, damn those Vogons. They're not evil, they're just bureaucrats. They don't have independent thoughts, they don't have ideas, they just run things. So, after being the Vogon ship and being number one rule, don't let the Vogons read poetry to you because they are the third worst poet writers in the galaxy. Compared to the number one, which was from Earth but was destroyed during the Annihilation. And got picked up by the Starship Heart of Gold, where you see Tricia McMillan, who changed her name to Trillian Astra, voiced by Susan Sheridan. And of course, she is on the ship Heart of Gold with Seyfod Beeblebrox, president of the galaxy, who's just a laid-back, just arrogant jackass who don't see the serious sides of the picture, who is voiced by none other than Mark Wing-Davey. And of course we have Marvin, the depressed android, voiced by Stephen Moore. And the reason why he's so depressed is because he's a prototype of robots who have people personality programs. And he was the prototype, and the only personality he has is depression. And I don't know why I call him Marvin the Depressed Android because they call him Paranoid Android, but it doesn't make any sense because Paranoid are more like, did you hear that? What was that? What was that? While Depressed is more like, I want you all to know I'm feeling very depressed. Life, don't talk to me about life. That's how Marvin is. Look at me, a brain the size of a planet, and you want me to bring the hijackers into the bridge. Oh God, I hate my life. And they went all the way to go to a planet called Magrathea, because it turns out that years later there was a lot of thinkers and scientists who made the supercomputer, and they asked the supercomputer the ultimate question. And the question is about the life, universe, and everything. And the supercomputer says, wait for 7 million years later, and I'll give you the answer. They wait for it, and then years later, he says, the ultimate answer to life, universe, and everything is 42. 42? Seriously? 40 bloody 2? 40 bloody 2? That's not even an answer. It sounds like a math thing. And of course, don't ask me because I don't know anything about math. I'm terrible at it. But they say that the ultimate answer to life, universe, and everything was from a planet that is actually a supercomputer, which he calls it Earth. So it turns out our planet Earth is supposed to be the one who's supposed to give the ultimate answer to life, universe, and everything. But anyway, they explored the planet Magrathea after all those years, and all of a sudden, turns out that the planet Magrathea, they're the ones who build planets. And ever since the Vogons destroyed Earth, they decided to rebuild a new one called Earth Mark II. Not bad. And try to pick up where it left off. So they're not going to start from the prehistoric time. They're just going to start before the Vogons destroyed it. And they meet a scientist who is responsible for the creation of Earth, named an old man named Slotty Botfost, voiced by Richard Vernon. Anyway, they meet the two mice. It turns out that some of the people who was looking for the ultimate answer to the supercomputer, they disguise themselves as mice and they live among us, studying us. And even though it looks like we're studying them, but they're actually studying us. They start teaching us. I always had a feeling that there's something sort of suspicious about lab rats, white mice. But of course, sadly, a bunch of authorities going after Seyfa Beeblebrox because he's sort of a wanted person. He stole the ship. So pretty much he's on the run. And even they asked the therapist about Seyfa Beeblebrox, and that therapist always kept saying, well, Seyfa Beeblebrox, he's just this guy, you know. And one thing that's so different about Seyfa Beeblebrox is he has 3 arms and 2 heads. Compared to the movie, which, a little known fact from the TV show I watch, Mark Wing-Davis, when he played Seyfa Beeblebrox, he said that second head was heavy as hell. But he also thought another idea that Seyfa should have. Not only should have 2 heads and 3 arms, he should have 2, but not show it, but if you paid attention to his pants, it kind of looks like he has 2 long tubes inside his pants. And that was Mark Wing-Davey's idea on that one. So in the 2005 movie, when Arthur said anything else he has two of, well, don't ask. Although it does kind of remind you on David Tennant, Doctor Who, where Rose Tyler told her mother that he has two hearts, and Rose's mom says, anything else you got two of? Leave him alone. But anyway, they time traveled into the future to a restaurant at the end of the universe called Milliways. Because, I mean, when it's called the end of the universe, it's not like the end of the universe, like literally the end of our universe. It's supposed to be the end of time, the end of our universe in the future. So pretty much, Milliways, the restaurant at the end of the universe, is actually the end of time of our universe. And it was a restaurant that they decided to create that people can sit back, relax, dine before the universe itself gets destroyed. Imagine that. They hijacked a ship that belongs to a rock star, and the ship itself was heading towards the sun. They thought they were going to die until they got teleported. Safod and Trillian teleported somewhere. We don't even know where they went to, but Ford and Arthur ended up on a third ship that is run by the third kind. I mean, they said that they were separated with three ships. One that are the thinkers, like inventors, scientists, and YouTube critics. And the second is the doers, the one who does all the hard work, the handiwork. And the third are the third people, the ones who are like telephone operators, hairstylists, toy designers, useless kind of job. But it turns out two of those people were gone, but the third one, they're about ready to crash to an unknown planet. And of course their captain was on a bathtub 24/7. Man, what kind of sea captain who just live in a bathtub all day? I mean, I heard about cleaning yourself, but god damn, man. Anyway, they ended up, Ford and Arthur and those people ended up in this prehistoric planet where the cavemen are, and Ford and Arthur decided to explore the world while those other people are trying to think up other ideas. And after they're exploring, they meet those people. And one is supposed to be like an insurance person, and of course, he says that now they have currency, and the currency is from the leaves from the trees. And they thought they are getting too much of the currency from all the trees, so he thought burning down the entire forest would be a good idea. And when they try to build the wheel, it's not even a round wheel, and all they're talking about is how to color it. What color should it have? It doesn't matter the color, it's supposed to be the shape, stupid! And of course, Ford Prefect told those people in about a year or two, they're going to die down. They're going to be destroyed, be extinct, because those people didn't have the right mind to do what's supposed to be, what Survivor's supposed to be doing. And of course, they end that one by playing What a Wonderful World by Louis Armstrong. Now, one thing I gotta say, ladies and gentlemen, I am not a big fan of Louis Armstrong, What a Wonderful World. I mean, I don't like listening to What a Wonderful World because it kind of saddens me, because every time I hear that song, it always reminds me that all things end. Everything ends in a sad way. So that's why I don't like listening to that song. Of course, I can do a good impression of him.
And I said to myself, what a wonderful world.
But I mean, I just don't like to sing that song. And everybody thought it was the end, but not for long. Turns out that and the therapist, he goes by the name of Gag Hoffret. He's the one who always kept saying, well, Sefer Bibelbrot is just this guy, you know. It's just this guy. Anyway, now let's get to phase 2. And on this one, Sefer Bibelbrox, he went up to this guy who goes by the name of Rooster, voiced by Alan Ford, which I do like him. I've seen him in Snatch and other movies. He's a really good actor. And he's all the way to find this other person that Sefer Bibelbrox has a problem with, who goes by the name of Zarni Roop, who is voiced by none other than Jonathan Pryce. And of course, now Ford and Arthur spend their entire life in that prehistoric place getting drunk until they found a ship that picks them up. So now they got picked up by a ship and they got reunited with Safod and Trillian. And of course, Arthur was trying to find a machine that makes tea, and he has an argument with the tea machine because it's given him a beverage that is similar to tea, but it's not tea. And it was revolting, and he says, take it back. And of course, the machine itself saying, I just scan your taste buds to see what you like. Share and enjoy. Share and enjoy. And he said, no, I'm not going to enjoy it because I don't want to share it. And of course, you're not giving me what I want. I want tea. And she tried to scan what he desires tea, which is dry tea leaf and boiling water. And she doesn't understand it, why she wants something like that. So he pretty much had an argument with the machine for not giving him tea because he's been looking around trying to find tea anywhere. Imagine that. Years later, a couple of episodes later, Arthur ended up and meet a wise old bird who is voiced by John Lemessurier. And he tells Arthur that he was rebelling against the machine, and now they build a statue of him tossing a plastic cup. Because he rebelled against the machine for not giving him tea, so now everybody starts rebelling against machines because they're not getting exactly what they wanted. Imagine that. And all of a sudden, Arthur landed on a ground that are made out of boot leathers. Or boot rubbers? Soles of shoes. And he meets this woman who is a clone who goes by the name of Lenteria, who is voiced by the lovely Rula Linska, which I've seen her in the Cluedo series. And all of a sudden the book itself gets updated, and now the book is voiced by William Franklin. Anyway, the Vogon captain, he got so pissed off that he started killing his own men, so he starts talking to Gag Leverett, the therapist. And then all of a sudden, in phase 3, Arthur finally went back to Earth, but it turns out it was in the past. It's in couple of days before the Vogons dominated the Earth. And it turns out that there was a bunch of cricket bots showed up, all voiced by Dominic Husky. And in their origin, it turns out that there was a group of master cricket guys who just stands outside at night and starts singing until they start seeing a ship came out of nowhere, and that's when they created these cricket bots who started to using these explosive balls as cricket balls and using their cricket bat to whack them to destroy everything. And of course, from out of nowhere, out comes this guy who is immortal, who goes by the name of Bowick Wowbagger, who is voiced by Toby Longworth. And of course, Trillian was fed up with Zaphod's behavior. He just keeps... Zaphod starts sitting back, relaxing, sipping on his Pem Galactic Gargle Blaster, which is an alcohol that he invented. Take my advice. Don't ever drink Pem Galactic Gargle Blasters. Because if you take a sip of Pem Galactic Gargle Blasters, it makes your head feel like you've been hit by a lemon wrapped around a gold brick. I mean, like... Air conditioner, guys. But anyway, Slotty Botfoss showed up, and he brought Arthur and Ford with him into a ship, and then all of a sudden went into a small party, and then all of a sudden Arthur reunited with Trillian, and it turns out Trillian was hanging out with Thor, the God of Thunder, who... Thor, the God of Thunder, is voiced by the same guy who does the cricket bots, Dominic Harksley. And there was a really interesting scene of all time, folks. Arthur finally grew a backbone, and he was like this. Do you want to make something of it, sir? I beg your pardon, sir? I say, do you want to step outside and make something of it? And of course, Ford is like, Arthur, this is Thor, the God of Thunder. He has a hammer a side of New Jersey. He says, I don't care. You want to step outside and make something of it? And Thor is like, all right. And then he opened the door and flew out. Turns out they were in a spaceship, and Thor just went outside into space. First time that Arthur ever outsmarted somebody. That was unbelievable. And then the cricket bots, they got all the trophies from all the cricket games, and they formed a key in order to destroy the Earth, but Arthur and Ford took a stop on it, and now they discovered Earth Mark II. And now we get to number 3 to the story, where Arthur, he ends up on Earth, and he's pretty happy where he was, and finally got himself a cup of tea, which he always been dying to get ever since he went into space. And then from out of nowhere, he meets this girl. I mean, I know I thought, and other people thought, that Arthur and Trillian should end up together, but surprisingly, Trillian, she'd rather go with Thor than Arthur. How do you like that? And also ditches Zaphod, because all he was doing is being busy getting drunk by drinking Pam Galactic Gargle Blasters. I mean, taking 2 because he has 2 heads. So, Arthur met a new girl. And the girl, her name is Finchurch, voiced by the lovely, talented, and absolutely hilarious Jane Horrocks. And of course, the Vogons find out that there's another Earth, and now they decided to smash it as well, destroy it for the hyperspace bypass. While at the same time, I mean, Finchurch, she remembered she was once destroyed by something, and now she doesn't know how she survived. But Arthur knew, and he didn't want to tell her. But when she found his Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy book that he found, that he kept from Ford, she starts seeing the point. She starts seeing what Arthur was getting at. And one thing she thought it was kind of surprising, that before that whole Vogon destruction on Earth, all the dolphins disappeared. Which a lot of people did say that, I mean, any of you who watch the movie, they always say that the second smartest animal in the galaxy is, of course, dolphins, who knew about the destruction of the Earth, but we couldn't understand them. So the last message they say was, "So long, and thanks for all the fish." But there was a scientist who had the theory about why the dolphins disappear, but nobody didn't listen to him. His name was John Watson, but he is called Ronco the Sane. And when they finally meet him, he was voiced by none other than Christian Slater. What, seriously? Christian Slater? Thought it was bad enough that Doctor Who TV movie where they had Eric Roberts as the Master, and now Big Finish keeps bringing him back as the Master. Now they have Christian Slater playing the scientist who knew about the disappearance of the dolphins. Well, at the same time, turns out that there was another alternate universe, an alternate Earth, and there is this alternate Trillian, who is actually Tricia McMillan, who didn't go with Seyfa Beeblebrox, but stayed on Earth and became a journalist, except she has blonde hair and an American accent, and she is voiced by Sandra Dickinson. Now, for those of you who don't know about Sandra Dickinson, she was Peter Davison's ex-wife. You know, Peter Davison, the fifth Doctor in Doctor who is David Tennant's father-in-law. Yeah, she was the mother of David Tennant's wife, Julia. Or Georgina, sorry. But anyway, Tricia McMillan, she remembered that she met Seyfa Beeblebrox, but she didn't go with Seyfa and kept wondering if there was another part of her who went with Seyfa, and what kind of adventure she would have gone through. She would have been Trillian, of course. So she always kept trying to find ways to maybe find some extraterrestrial out there, and there's proof out there, and maybe be able to do exactly what Trillian did. But at the same time, Arthur and Finchurch, they found Marvin covered in rust in the middle of the desert. And Marvin was trying to find God's last message. Turns out God left a message in the mountains that people can see. But Marvin, his version was dim because he's so rusted and fallen apart. So they grab a viewfinder and let him see it. See the last message from God, which the last message was, "We apologize for the inconvenience." And then Marvin died. Or so we thought. I'll explain more. And now Finn Church asked Arthur to take her to see the galaxy. And he was like, okay. And when they were in the space flight, all of a sudden, Finn Church vanished. And now Arthur can't find her anywhere. And that's where he left to Phase 5. Where now Arthur ended up in the planet called Now What? A planet that is completely the opposite of our planet. Where all the good stuff happened in our planet, the bad stuff happened to Now What? And Ford found out that the guide is being taken over by Zarniroop. You know, John Price. And he wanted Ford to work on the restaurant, be a restaurant critic, but he assaulted Zarniroop, so that kind of got him fired. While at the same time, Arthur ended up in a swamp area where now Arthur is a sandwich maker. He makes sandwiches for people. Well, gotta live some way, somehow. And then all of a sudden, Trillian shows up. And Trillian surprised Arthur. Turns out that Arthur Dent has a daughter. And her name is Random, played by Samantha Bertz. Now, Arthur and Trillian did not get physical. Nah. Turns out that when Arthur knew that Finn Church disappeared, he kept trying to find ways to make money in order to find Finn Church. So he went to sperm banks and such. And, of course, Trillian found one from him. And that's when she decided to have a daughter named Random. And Trillian wants Arthur to keep an eye on Random. Now, Random, she's supposed to be like a typical teenage girl. She doesn't want to stay in one planet. She wants to explore the galaxy and also find the planet where she originally came from. While at the same time, Trisha McMillan went to space because she met a bunch of aliens and they took her into space. So now she's kind of experiencing Trillian's experience. And all of a sudden, Random, she met this giant bird, which it turns out it's the new guide from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, who is voiced by Rola Lenska. And her and Random decided to explore, went up into space, and they went to Earth, met Trisha McMillan, and Random mistaked her as her mother, until the real Trillian shows up and explains it to Random. Well, at the same time, Arthur and Ford needed a new ship, so they went to this diner and found this pink spaceship, and met the owner, who turns out to be Elvis Presley. And the guy who does the voice of Elvis Presley is none other than Philip Pope. And I have to admit, when he imitates Elvis, he does a whole lot better than I do, especially with the singing, because
when I do Elvis Presley, I just only talk when I'm Elvis. Not much of a singer, just more of a talker. Thank you very much. Well, that's right, baby. Let's go to the galaxy together. Uh-huh. Yeah, baby. Yeah, baby.
But anyway, Arthur and Ford reunited with Trillian and Random, and Trisha McMillan met Trillian, and all of a sudden they both merged together. So now Trillian has blonde hair and start developing an American accent. That's kind of weird. And the Vogons, they exploded that Earth, and now they all ended up in Milliways, the restaurant at the end of the universe. And of course, believe it or not, Thor himself showed up, and he sat next to Trillian. And when Arthur was about ready to ask for a waitress, it turns out the waitress was Fenchurch. Somehow she disappeared in the plane and ended up in Milliways. And now she's in Milliways as a waitress. And as for Marvin, the depressed robot, he was alive too. He was doing what he did last time, just parking cars. Some job for a depressed robot as a car parker, always parking cars. Ah, jeez. And it did lead to a really good happy ending until we heard that there's a bunch of Vogons who's planning to do another attack on another Earth. Gosh, could the Vogons piss off? Jeez! But believe it or not, this was all from this Ultimate book itself, because all of Douglas Adams' stories, all 4 of them, was in this book. But sadly, when Douglas Adams passed away, there was another author who decided to pick up where Douglas Adams left off after his passing. And another author who goes by the name of Ewan Kaufner. And he wrote the book, which is supposed to be like the finale to the whole Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy story, which the book was called And Another Thing. And they were able to do the radio episode to tie in the loose ends, which now we have Phase 6. Now, Phase 6 became a whole lot different now. The narrator itself, is narrated by none other than John Lloyd. And of course, the guide itself from the book is now Guide Mark II, and he's voiced by Professor Stephen Hawking. But anyway, turns out that Sci-Fi Beeblebrox now has 1 head, because he insulted the headless people when he says 2 heads are better than none. So now he had one of his head removed, which he calls it Left Brain, who is voiced by singer and voice actor Mitch Benn. And Arthur, on the other hand, he lost Finwich again, and he's trying his best to find her. And the Vogons are trying to destroy Earth, while at the same time, Wowbagger showed up again to insult Arthur and Ford Prefect, and also pissed off Sci-Fi Beeblebrox for calling him a fat ass. And Sci-Fi Beeblebrox, he took it personal, because nobody calls him a fat ass. And of course, there were some other characters about gods and such, and we have, Cthulhu was in the story, voiced by John Colshall. But of course, Sci-Fi Beeblebrox, now one thing he knows about Wowbagger is that he is immortal, and the only person who would take down an immortal is a god. So now, Seyfa Beeblebrox decided to do something unthinkable. He decided to go to Asgard. And Seyfa Beeblebrox met Heimdall, who tells him to take him to Asgard. And Heimdall is voiced by Tim Alexander, which sadly I have no pictures. Sorry, folks. Well, at the same time, Arthur went to a hologram computer and he starts talking to Fenchurch by his memory. So she's pretty much a computer memory designed by Arthur's memories. While Seyfa Beeblebrox, he met Thor. And Thor, he was kind of pissed at what Seyfa Beeblebrox did and made him into a laughingstock of Asgard. So, Seyfa decided to make amends by going down to this one planet and fight Wildbagger, the immortal. And Thor's like, okay, you're on. I'll go down to that planet and have a battle against that immortal jackass who always keeps insulting everybody where he meets. So now, at the same time, Random meets Ford, and she steals his credit card to order something online. Do you ever hate it when somebody steals your credit card or your bank number and steal money out of your account? And of course, it turns out that Trillian, who is now voiced by the same actress who did Trisha, I guess she couldn't continue on as Trillian, so that's why they asked the actress Sandra Dickinson to do the voice of Trillian. And she is madly in love with Wildbagger, and Random hates that. She thinks it's gross. Now she's interested in immortals instead of Norse gods. And of course, Thor and Wildbagger, they both had their fights. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of Vogons showed up. And they decided to launch torpedoes on that planet. So, they put a stop on the fight, and Thor decided to protect the planet. So he battled against a bunch of missiles that the Vogons have launched until Thor died to save the planet. Oh, so you thought, because he faked his death. It's better to save a planet and fake your death so people could honor you when you're dead. And of course, Seyfa Beeblebrox and his manager made a pretty good deal and pretty good money involving the fight and everything. So now Trillian ends up with Wildberger. Random went off on her own, and so did Ford Prefect. Seyfa with the agent, cutting some sort of deals and such. And as for the Vogons, since what the heroic act that that Thor did, they decided to just leave this planet alone and move on somewhere else. And at the end, Arthur, he went back home on his own planet, on Earth. And when he opened the door, much of his surprise, he finally found Fenchurch. Turns out that she was in his house all along, taking care of everything. Gee, after all that time, he didn't think about going to his own home and see if she was still there? Huh. Would have thunk it. And that was the end. And of course, after the end of that last sixth story, they decided to reunite some of the casts and decided to make Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy radio show live, where they're doing their live performance in front of everybody. Which I gotta say, that's pretty neat. And also, I wouldn't mind, there's also a graphic novel of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It was created by DC Comics, but I bet now it's owned by another company now. Well, so much for Superman meeting the guys from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. At least my Doctor ends up in the DC universe in my audio series. Speaking of audio series, there are times I even think about making my own version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I mean, I'm thinking about doing my own version, except I'm thinking about not only writing the series, but also play Ford Prefect and have somebody do Arthur, or, of course, I decided to make Arthur be a girl. And Trillian a guy, and Seyfod a girl. You know, trying to change things a little bit, but keep faithful to the story itself. Anyway, this is my review for the day of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So, those of you who, in case any of you wondering how I got the radio show, I went to a website called Internet Archives. So, if you want to listen to the radio show yourself and enjoy it like I did, go to Internet Archives and give it a good listen. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. It is the most awesome series they've ever done, thanks to Douglas Adams and those who love the series and continue on the legacy. So for those of you who enjoyed my series, please leave a comment down below, hit like and subscribe. And, yeah, I did mention before, I am planning to do a Doctor Who, except I'm not going to do the comedy parody, but I'm going to be talking about Doctor Who animation. I talk about the Big Finish one, I talk about the series, and I think it's time for me to talk about the animated series. Now, not the one with David Tennant, because I couldn't get those, but at least I can talk about the ones that BBC I have done, and I already did Death Comes to Time, but I'm going to be talking about the other ones that they also made. So, this is Michael A. Graham, aka the Multi-Voice, or Multi-Voice Doctor, saying, I'm the Multi-Voice Doctor. I remember it so I can jog your memory.